Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you tonight to the Wasatch Independent Debate League Soapbox. We're grateful that you're here. To begin tonight, I want to ask a question. What is the most powerful force in the world? We could probably answer that question in a lot of ways. You might say that it's love, or maybe hatred. I'm not sure that there's an answer that we could definitively say, but up toward the top of the list has to be ideas. Ideas move things in this world in a way that nothing else does. The British playwright Edward Bulwer-Lytton famously wrote that the pen is mightier than the sword, and I wonder what you think about that proposition. The sword is pretty mighty. Many things have been done with violence and force. Does it make sense to really say that ideas, that words are more powerful than that? To consider the question, I invite you to go to a specific moment in history. I'd like you to imagine that you were the first person to whom St. Thomas Aquinas started to outline his ideas of what makes war justified, his theory of just war. Would you have had any idea at that time the untold lives that would be saved by the boundaries that those ideas placed upon violence across time and across history? What if you'd been the first person, maybe living in South Africa, and you knew a lawyer of little renown named Mohandas Gandhi? What if you were the first one to hear his ideas of nonviolent resistance? Do you think you could have had any idea how powerful, how meaningful those ideas would be, how they would change the course of geopolitics and the ideas of philosophy across the world? If you were there when you first heard John Locke's ideas found in his second treatise of government, or you were the first person who heard Louis Pasteur talk about his idea of germ theory, do you think you could have understood at that moment how powerful those ideas would be, how influential they would be? And now I'd like to invite you to think about the largest, most influential changes that have happened in your life. The moments that have been the most impactful to you, that have changed who you were as a person. And I invite you to trace them back to the first idea that sparked that change inside of you. I think it makes sense to say, in fact, ideas are among the most powerful forces in this entire world. As a teacher of students, every day I get to hear their ideas. Students who sometimes get dismissed because they're young, because their ideas are coming from a place that maybe doesn't have the same experience that someone who's 50 or 60 has. And yet I am stunned every day by the depth and the meaning that they bring every single day. And that is why we have the Soapbox, because we believe that the ideas that our students have are meaningful, powerful. They have the opportunity to change lives. So today, you're going to have the opportunity to hear ideas from a number of presenters. We'll have speakers giving speeches, and then we'll also have poems or short stories, and they'll alternate between those two. The names and the titles will be broadcast up here on the screen. So I invite you to sit back, open your mind, prepare yourself to hear some ideas. Maybe some that you'll agree with, others that perhaps you will not, but with firm commitment that discourse does make us better people. Ideas and our exposure to them help us grow. I hope you enjoy the speakers. I hope you'll give it up to our first speaker, Joan Davidson.
Have you ever heard the message that you need to love yourself? Maybe you've seen one of those great billboards that say something like, "Love thyselfie," or "Make yourself a priority." Yeah, me too. I mean, obviously these companies have our best interests at heart. They want us to love ourselves and their product. They want us to learn to love ourselves and find happiness in their Botox and alcohol. Okay, maybe that's just advertising and not self-love, but what about the people who say things like, always choose yourself, or if it doesn't make you happy, don't do it? Those seem nice, but they kind of sit wrong when you apply them to reality. My point is that we talk about love so much, we don't even know what it means anymore. Love, especially self-love, has been reduced to advertisements and Instagram posts. But the thing is, love is a genuine human need. This is a real question that people have. And I can tell you right now, the answer is probably not found on Pinterest and definitely not on a billboard. So what is self-love? What does it look like? Because people don't really love themselves. Or at least they don't love all of them. I mean, do you have parts of yourself that you absolutely hate? Things that no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to love? Because I know I do. There are pieces of me I wish I could lock away, never to be seen again. Things that no matter how hard I try, I simply cannot love. In the movie Inside Out, Riley has different emotions that work in her mind. One of these emotions, joy, likes to be in charge. Logically, she assumes that she is the best emotion for Riley to feel, so she tries to control the other emotions like sadness, lock them away. But these emotions, even sadness, are part of Riley, and Riley needs them. I think we're all a little bit like Joy sometimes. We want to lock away the bad parts of ourselves, but these emotions and these bad things are part of us. And apparently we need to love them. It's not that I disagree with this message. No, I think it's important. I just don't know how. I mean, there are parts of me that I love, like the part of me that's organized and the part of me that's a good friend. But no matter how hard I try, I just can't seem to like the part of me that's critical or the part of me that always seems to be stressed about something. And maybe it's not just me. Maybe this feeling of division inside is a normal human experience. I mean, I have to wonder, do people have parts? What if our brains were a little like Inside Out? What if we had an anger, a disgust, sadness, joy, fear? What if we had parts inside of us? Actually, this idea that we, people, are multifaceted, that we're not a single entity but a composite of whatever it is, emotions, little people, it's not just something Disney made up. People have been discussing it for centuries. Philosophers like Plato and Descartes called it dualism, believing that people are made up of 2 or 3 parts. Native American wisdom holds that people have 4 parts. Stories like The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson and The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds by Brandon Sanderson all explore the idea that people are made up of parts. The question is why? Why has this idea captured the attention of generations? Maybe it's not just a metaphor. Maybe we feel divided because in some way we are. So imagine this. What if you had beings in your mind? Some of them are hurt, some of them are happy. They all have different wants and needs. They work together to manage your mind, to make decisions, and keep you safe. You, yourself, are like the boss, the parent of this family, if you will. These emotions control and take turns directing your thoughts and actions, just like Riley in Inside Out. This idea is not just a story, and it's not just a philosophical idea. It's actually the foundation of a psychological framework called Internal Family Systems, or IFS, developed by Dr. Robert Schwartz. In his book, No Bad Parts, he explains, all of us are born with many subminds, what I call parts. These parts are forced into extreme roles by life experiences, and we get stuck in cycles of inner conflict. Let's pause and talk about 3 key terms used in IFS. First, self, the true you. Second, parts. And 3, unburdening. Our first term is what Dr. Schwartz calls self. It's the parent figure I mentioned, the true you. When you are in self, you feel love towards every part of you. Second, parts. This is the IFS term for the emotions, the people in your head. There are 2 kinds of parts. First, we'll talk about exiles. Exiles are hidden, wounded parts of us. They carry old pain like sadness that we pushed away as kids. The other type of part is protectors. To understand how protectors work, let's go back to the world of Inside Out. In the second movie, an emotion named anxiety shows up. Trying to protect Riley, anxiety influences her to think false things. In the end, Riley feels terrible because of anxiety's influence. Anxiety then comes to a realization. She says to Joy, "I'm so sorry. I was just trying to protect her. But you're right. We don't get to choose who Riley is." The concept is that protectors, like anxiety, do their best to keep you safe from emotions and hard things by suppressing them. They want to help, but they don't always know the best way. The final term I have for you is unburdening. It's when a part comes to fully trust yourself and lay down its burden of protecting you. Also note that IFS says creating parts is a normal psychological behavior. It doesn't mean you have a personality disorder or extreme trauma. Let's put this theory into context so we can understand it a little better. When I was young, my incredible mother, new to parenting, had some specific ideas about how a child should behave. Some of those expectations were unrealistic, but she often expected me to live up to them. This created some pain and confusion for 3-year-old Joan. It hurt a little part of me. To protect me and this hurting part from pain, my mind created a protector part. Just like anxiety and Inside Out, this protector managed. She helped me be the perfect daughter so that I wouldn't have to experience the discomfort of disappointing my mom. What that part didn't know is that, imperfect as my mother is, she loves me no matter what. This part was doing her best. She took upon herself the difficult task of keeping me safe, and I hated her. I hated when she was around. I hated how she made me critical of myself. I hated always having to be perfect and how I always felt stressed when she was around. She was doing her best to protect me, and I hated her. The thing about parts with burdens is they don't age. They don't learn and grow. So at age 16, I had a 3-year-old protector telling me what to do. And like any 3-year-old, she didn't do a very good job. It wasn't her fault. She just had limited information and experience. When I learned about IFS, I knew I had to heal this part. This might sound a little crazy, but I talked to her. I went inside my head and myself asked her questions. After talking to her about her job and her perception of the world, I didn't hate her anymore. In fact, I felt incredibly grateful towards this little part of me. And so I told her, I said, "Thank you for protecting me. You did a wonderful job." And then I got to tell her, I'm 16 now. I'm secure in who I am and in my mother's love. You don't have to protect me anymore. I got this. And so now my perfect part doesn't have to do that hard job anymore. She's organized and good at staying on task, so we work together. But she's not stressed anymore, and she doesn't get overwhelmed as much because she trusts me. This is how I've learned to love myself, even the parts of me I don't like, because I realized they're not the bad guys. Maya Hawke, the actress who voiced anxiety in Inside Out, said, "Anxiety is the antagonist of Riley's story, but she's not the villain of Riley's life." And this is true of our parts. So that part of you that shuts down and gets quiet to avoid confrontation, the part that eats too much chocolate or scrolls on TikTok when you're sad, the part that overthinks and needs constant reassurance, the one that tells you you're not pretty or smart or strong enough, the one that lashes out in anger against those you love most. They're all just trying to help. All these behaviors, the feelings, the things you don't know why you do, they're just little pieces of you that love you and want to keep you safe. I don't know if people actually have parts in their brains, but even if we don't, I found this method of healing to be incredibly helpful in generating lasting change. If you've gone through significant trauma, you may want to see a professional. But for those of us experiencing the hardship of everyday life, IFS can be a helpful tool to process emotions in a healthy way. I know we all have things about ourselves that we don't like. But I also believe that it's our job to get curious. Learn about your parts, especially the ones you don't like. Next time you do something, that thing that you just hate that you do, next time you have strong emotions or just notice something about yourself that you don't like, reach out in love. Curiosity and gratitude. As you get to know these parts of you, you'll even come to love them, because we really don't have any bad parts of us, just confused 3-year-olds trying to navigate a world of pain. So, in conclusion, we all do need to love ourselves, but self-love definitely isn't about buying a product, and it isn't really about spa day or mirror affirmations either. As Joy once said, every bit of Riley makes her who she is, and we love all of our girl, every messy, beautiful piece of her. Thank you.
See the way that boy eyes the potatoes? Like he's never eaten in his whole life. See me sitting there, glowing ever so slightly, tucked into still, chiffon curtains blending with my wispy wings. I poke my head out, the wanting, wishing, wondering, taking over. He glances over by the window, eyes widen, smiles softly. See the way that boy eyes the potatoes? Like he finally believes.
One, 2, 3. Oh, fancy meeting you all here. My name is Troy Mathews. I competitively set up and take down social events, and I'm currently training for chairlifting season. 49, 50. Now you're probably wondering, why would anyone enjoy putting away chairs so much that they'd actually train to get better at it? I tell you, that is a good question. But before we continue further, I must warn you, I am not your average guy. I am deeply fond of washing dishes. I have a strong obsession with throwing trash away. And if you ask me to carry something for you, you'll think I just won the lottery based off of my eagerness to help. Now at this point, you're probably even more confused by me. You have 10 minutes to give us a speech, to stir our souls with something truly profound. And you tell us you like washing dishes? I know you're thinking this. And I promise I am going somewhere with this. In fact, there's a secret hidden behind what I've already said. So before you throw me out, just hear what I have to say. Joy is often a lot simpler than we make it out to be. You may ask, really? How? What does this even mean? Well, to start, let us turn to one Jacques Lesseron, who is imprisoned in a concentration camp at Buchenwald. To find him, we simply ask one of the skeletal inmates for the blind Frenchman. Let us not dwell long on the horrors that meet our eyes as we step over the maimed, sick, and dying bodies that lie between us and him. Instead, let us go straight to why we came here. Jacques Lesseron, when will you be happy? Is it when the war has ended? When you're released from this prison? Or when you return to your home in Paris? But instead, he responds, I am already happy. In his autobiography, Jacques records the key to survival. Throw yourself into every moment as if it were the only moment that really existed. Work, and work hard. Now, Jacques lived by what he taught. He would find the most desperate inmate, the one on the brink of giving into panic, and then throw himself into talking to them, comforting them. Through this, he found purpose. He found joy. Now, it may sound simple, but it worked. Jacques records, "I have not a single evil memory of those 330 days of extreme wretchedness." How did he do this? How did he find joy in the most adverse circumstances? Well, this is what I'm trying to tell you today. He found joy in the simple acts of kindness he could bestow upon his fellow brethren. By focusing on these simple things, he didn't have to be consumed by the problem, which I'm sure none of us want to be. The truth is, we all want to be happy. I believe that men are that they might have joy, as stated in 2 Nephi 2:25. Unfortunately, as humans, we sometimes make this a lot harder than it needs to be. There was a time in my life where I could not find joy. I asked myself, when will I be happy again? It pains me to think how many of you wonderful people at least know someone, if not you personally, that have asked themselves this same question. When will I be happy again? Or why can't I be happy? It's so hard to answer. At the time when I asked this, it seemed I was in my own concentration camp. It seemed the more I asked this question, the more I blindly groped for an answer that wasn't there. But I am not here today to tell you how miserable life can be. I am here to tell you it doesn't have to be this way. I wish I could point back to a time in my life when things flipped for me and everything was all right again. But that wasn't the case. The climb out of the abyss was as gradual as the descent in. Success is never owned. It is rented, and the rent is due every day. This quote is often attributed to Rory Vaden and can apply to any type of success. Happiness is never owned. It is rented, and the rent is due every day. While this continual, lifelong process of attaining happiness sounds arduous, it is possible. And yes, an instantaneous solution to all our problems sounds amazing. But when is that going to happen? Still, we get caught up in the belief that life should be all sunshine and rainbows, that the truly happy people have everything perfect. This warped perspective is thrust upon us by our glamorous society again and again. We get caught up in the belief that I would be happy if I were that person. If my parents, my spouse, my siblings just weren't like that. We view happiness as a physical prize, a trophy, a car, or anything else that can be bought with money. Our perception of being happy is replaced by a yearning for someone's love, a thirst for revenge, or jealousy. We hang all our beliefs of what happiness is on one unrealistic dream that often lies outside of our ability to reach. See, you can hope with all your might for your ship to come in, but think of all you'll miss just waiting there. It's time to swim out to get it. And enjoy the swim. Jack R. Rose recorded in his book, The Cedar Post, happiness is cleverly nested in the process of attaining predetermined, worthwhile goals. So yes, keep working towards those long-term goals you already have. But don't cheat yourself of the happiness that can be gained along the way. You don't have to wait to be happy. Choosing to be happy is like everything else. It takes practice. And like everything else, you'll get better at it the more you do it. Philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson states, "That which we persist in doing becomes easier. Not that the nature of the task has changed, but that our ability to do has increased." I was getting nowhere by asking myself, when will I be happy? So I asked myself a different question. How will I be happy? How will I be happy this week, today, right now? As Mary Poppins wisely preached, in every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. My challenge to you today is to find that fun. Find the fun in washing dishes, in comforting a friend, a family member, or a complete stranger. Take any task which helps someone, yourself included, and then do it. Then, get as much joy as you possibly can get out of it. That's your goal. Now, before I leave, I must tell you, you will succeed in this goal. C.S. Lewis records in his book, The Screwtape Letters, a dialogue between a devil and his nephew.
We fight under cruel disadvantages. Everything has to be twisted before it's of any use to us. Nothing is naturally on our side.
So in other words, things are naturally on your side. As humans, we are naturally happy. The devil wishes us to be miserable like unto himself. But to do this, he has to work very hard. Today is a good day. If you seek joy, you will find. I leave you with this invitation and hope to see you when it's time to put away the chairs. Thank you.
I read of dragons, giants, wizards, adventurous hobbits, flying horses, and talking hats. I gasp with Frodo, guffaw with Harry, but soon realize it will never be the same. I pack my bag full, wands, snacks, books, a ring, and take off, going on an adventure of my own. Eerie loneliness. No warlocks or witches. No Voldemort. No Count Olaf. No White Witch. And I quickly realize it will never be the same. Hot chocolate beside me and siblings laughing while I read of dragons, giants, wizards, adventurous hobbits, flying horses, and talking hats. I gasp with Frodo, guffaw with Harry, and finally realize it's fine if it will never be the same.
Could you imagine for a moment that you are a minority in the place that you live? You could be a Jewish person living in 1930s Germany, a Christian in current-day Dubai, a Muslim person in China, a member of the LDS Church in Missouri, or even someone with liberal values in Utah, and perhaps bright blue hair. If you were in the minority, what would you want from the others in your society? You might not expect them to change their own beliefs for you, but would you want them to understand you? Would you want them to be open-minded enough to listen to what you have to say, respectful of your way of life? Moving then from this theoretical question to a more practical one, how would it feel if your government started banning books from public spaces because those books represented what you thought and what you believed? What if your thoughts were treated not only as though they shouldn't be agreed with, but as though they shouldn't even be heard? Book banning may seem like something that you would read about in a history book, but it is happening in Utah right now. There are a lot of reasons why a book may become unavailable. Sometimes a book is removed from a library purely because it has not been checked out in years. Other times, a book is not purchased in the first place because there isn't really any room in the library. All of these removals are done by librarians. They work with local schools or library branches, and it's the job that they are paid to do. But right now, books are being removed from Utah schools for a completely different reason. Challenged and banned by large organizations and state government entities based on personal ideals and opinions. There is a critical difference between routine removals and removals driven by ideology. When books are removed based on personal opinions of right and wrong, it doesn't matter what the intent is, it can still end up hurting a lot of people and restricting freedoms. So, why do people ban books? Books are often banned because people are uncomfortable with a certain topic, don't understand it, want to protect others from it, or even want to prevent others from learning about it. The book banning happening in Utah right now is done because certain people think that restricting topics in schools will protect children. Targeted books in Utah specifically are books that touch on racism, LGBTQ+ identity, or even mental health. The Utah legislature and various organizations have decided that these topics are not appropriate for children to be reading about due to distressing material. And they have stepped in to manage local schools in the place of librarians. Book banning has been a big topic in Utah for several years. In 2022, the Utah State Legislature passed House Bill 374, a bill that banned pornographic or indecent content in school libraries, without clearly defining what this actually meant. A large number of books were then challenged and banned in public schools across the state. Then, in the 2024 session, House Bill 29 was introduced and passed. This bill expanded on the 2022 legislation, changing it so that if a book is banned in 3 Utah districts, it is automatically banned in schools statewide. So far, a total of 18 books have been removed from school libraries all across Utah, including one that was banned just yesterday. Hundreds more have been removed in individual districts. What kind of material is bad enough to warrant this kind of restriction and government overreach? Banning pornographic material in schools on its own may sound like a good thing, but specific demographics are being targeted by these bans. Some may feel uncomfortable with their children reading about certain things, identities, or experiences. But there's an inherent hypocrisy when it comes to banning books based on ideological correctness. the type of banning that we are seeing today. When books are banned because a certain person does not like a certain topic, it creates an environment in which any book can be banned for any trivial reason. The criteria for banning books is so broad that simply mentioning the existence of gay or transgender people has been used as a reason to ban books, claiming that they are inappropriate for children. This banning has received little attention, but when the Bible was removed from Davis County schools for arguably much more graphic content, this sparked outrage and protests. And the entities backing the book banning to protect children suddenly backtracked, creating loopholes so that the Bible could be put back. When it comes to removing content in Utah, there is a clear double standard. Certain books are never considered or their removal is protested, while others are hunted through for any potentially inappropriate content. Books like The Color Purple and To Kill a Mockingbird are banned due to violent content and distressing situations faced by characters of color, while Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet are used as common curriculum despite having content that is also violent and disturbing. Board books about gay penguins are removed for graphic content, while the Bible, a book that depicts many cases of murder, sex, and other inappropriate content, is put back on shelves because, according to the Davis School Board, it doesn't contain any sensitive material. If there really is such an urgent need for removing inappropriate content from schools, then that should include everything that falls under that umbrella, not just a selectively picked handful of books from a certain point of view that somebody dislikes. The argument that it is a parent's choice to pick and choose which book subjects are inappropriate is a justification used by many advocates of book banning. The mission statement for Utah Parents United, the organization that has challenged many books in Utah school districts, says this, quote, "We are a group of parents committed to protecting the parent-child relationship in law and education. Children are more successful when their parents are involved and engaged in their lives and their education," unquote. This sentiment is one supported by many of the people in the Utah legislature. Sure, Utah Parents United may have parent members who support book banning and don't like certain books, but not every parent with a child in those schools wants all of those books gone. This isn't giving parents a choice to let their kids read or not read books. It is actively removing this choice, forcing ideals of one small group on all Utah children and their parents. What would you think if the books being banned were ones that you want your children reading? And is restricting children's reading of different perspectives, ideas, and situations really necessary? Advocates of book banning claim that they restrict books in schools out of the desire and right to protect their children. But children don't need to be sheltered from all of the ills of the world. The second most challenged author in Utah, Ellen Hopkins, said in an interview with the Salt Lake Tribune, quote, "Every kid's life isn't pretty. We can't just take the ugliness out of the libraries. You need to see it," unquote. In facing problems and entities from libraries won't protect children. Children are far more capable of processing difficult events than we give them credit for. And children also need to be able to see things from different points of view, to be able to sympathize with and understand the people that they are going to be living with and working with in their future. Books are one of the best ways to learn about the world and difficult situations without having to experience them firsthand. When I was younger, I read The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. It was a book about the author's experience growing up poor and native in the United States. The book dealt with a lot of difficult topics, deaths, prejudice, substance abuse, and poverty. And while it was hard to read about, it taught me a lot about the experiences of other people. It helped me to see things from the author's perspective, and it taught me a lot about how lucky I am in life. If a kid grows up reading about books from only their familiar point of view, how are they going to handle life as a whole? How will they interact with others when they have no common ground or even awareness of the differences in situation? And what about those kids in minority groups? The kids living on reservations, growing up poor. Reading a book like The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian will show them hope, show them that they aren't alone and that they too can succeed. Books teach us empathy and show us how we aren't alone. Books exist to explore ideas, preserve knowledge, and record history. There are always going to be subversive books, books that people like a lot or hate a lot. But those books shouldn't be banned just because they're controversial. Preserving ideas means not just preserving the ideas of those that we agree with. It means preserving ideas of everyone. A society that values reading and trusts its young people with books is a society that believes in critical thinking, a society that values freedom. Freedom of speech is a value enshrined in our Constitution. If only one perspective is represented in the available literature, how is that free? Topics shouldn't be removed from public discourse because they are uncomfortable. The point of freedom of speech is to have discourse, to have discussions with other people about difficult topics and about different opinions without being silenced. A functioning society can't sweep issues and people that are different under the rug and pretend like they don't exist. The removal of books is the removal of entire ideas, entire segments of our history. Banning books hurts everyone, and it is something that we all need to care about. It is impacting the education of children in Utah, my peers, your children. This book banning is not protecting children. It is pretending problems and people that are different don't exist. It is making children feel unwelcome in their schools and unsafe in this state. Books matter. They are the way we record everything. The shelves in this library hold countless stories written by numerous authors. Certainly, I don't agree with all of them and find many of their writings uncomfortable to read. But the value that is in this knowledge, the lessons to be learned, all of that is priceless and deserves protection. Living in a society like this one means we have an obligation to one another, an obligation to listen to others, an obligation to make sure that even if you disagree with someone, their voice can still be heard. As a state, a community, we need to show that we value the free speech of everyone. Thank you.
Most people don't know much about manure, but Mr. Brooks does. When compost is fresh, it's called hot because it's full of microorganisms consuming and reproducing, which makes it literally hot. So hot, you can see heat waves over the heap in summer and steam in winter. So hot, the middle would burn your flesh off. So hot, a dead cow would be gone over winter. So hot, Norman Walker would be gone over winter. Nobody knows who killed Norman Walker, but Mr. Brooks does. By the time the search warrant was approved, Norman Walker was already corn. Thank you.
I am not important. I don't matter. I'm not going to change the world. I have no intrinsic value. I'm not going to cure cancer. I'm not going to fly airplanes. I'm not going to become some famous singer or actor. I'm not going to become a leader or a politician. No. Instead, I think I'm just going to sit in my parents' basement and cry. This is what 14-year-old me thought about 4 years ago. But I'm here now, on a stage, in front of all of you, accomplishing something awesome. Why? What changed from a depressed 14-year-old with a very fixed mindset about himself to an 18-year-old, a confident 18-year-old, standing in front of you today? I have one word for you. Mentors. Mentors are why I'm here. Now, this is my last ever speech. My last speech I will ever give in my high school debate career. And so I want to give credit where credit is due. I will be talking about 3 mentors today. 3 very important people who've changed me. To start, Laura Gardner. Now, after little 14-year-old me's depressive episode, he saw an ad for a musical. Now, 14-year-old me had been in a couple shows before, but nothing too crazy, nothing big or professional. But he was curious. Instead of being afraid of something new, he decided, let's just try it. So, I walked into the audition room. There was a table with 3 people at it, and I quietly, very unconfidently, sang a song. Now, the person in the middle was Laura Gardner. As I walked out, I felt awful about myself, but she saw something different. She saw an actor, a singer that she could teach, someone that was willing to learn. Now, I didn't see that in myself, but she saw it. So she casted me as a lead. I'd never been a lead. I walked into this thinking, I'm going to just get some ensemble part, and that's all I want. That's fine with me. But I got a lead. That's exciting. And after months of practicing songs, learning how to stand not like a candle, but to stand confidently, I learned 2 things from her. I learned that you can't have the light without a bit of darkness. That in all the darkness on this planet, you'll always be able to find the light. All it takes is a smile, or a song, or a kind word. That's all it takes. One tiny gesture, and then there's some light. In all the darkness in the world, there is the light. Now, my second mentor, Destiny Skinner. She is the most incredibly patient woman I have ever met. Now, little 14-year-old me, back to him, saw an ad. Well, I say I saw an ad. My mother saw an ad. It was for a youth council, the Harriman City Youth Council, where youth are able to apply and they serve the city. As she brought it to me, I didn't think that sounded too fun, so I said no. Now, after she dropped me off at the city building for my interview, I walked up the stairs to Destiny's office, and she began to ask me questions I didn't know the answers to, so I gave very short, one-worded replies. She asked, "Why do you want to be on the youth council?" "I don't know." My mom drove me here, so I'm going to be honest. Or at least try, I don't know. She asked, what are you going to do for the city? Something? I don't know that I can really do anything. And then she asked how I was going to change the youth of Harriman. I didn't have any ideas, so I just kind of said, oh, well, I'll be friends with them. As I walked out of the interview, I felt awful about myself. But she didn't see it that way. For some reason, she saw a leader in me. Someone who would be able to help and lead those who needed it. So I was in the youth council. I found myself going to service projects, to city meetings, learning about how to help other youth. And now, after 4 years of serving on the Harriman City Youth Council, she appointed me mayor this past year. Even more importantly to me, she appointed me because she believed in me. She appointed me to be a part of the Utah Youth Council, the state Utah Youth Council, all because little 14-year-old me, with his very short replies, had some semblance of a leader inside him. Now, my third mentor, Samuel Martineau. Man, I hated Sam. Oh, I hated him with every fiber of my being. He was everything I wanted to be. He was able to talk well. He was able to speak confidently. He was able to trap me in my words. I hated that. That was the worst thing. During discussions, he was able to make me say things that I didn't believe, but apparently I did because I was saying them. And I hated it. For 3 years, I hated it. But it wasn't until my first or second oratory that I finally understood why he teaches and why he believed in me. Now, my first or second oratory I brought to him. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to talk about. It was going to be depression or anxiety or some other first or second oratory topic. And as we sat down to talk about it, he was asking me questions, just trying to understand where I was coming from. And I was answering the best I could. But then, a surprise to me, he just looked me in the eyes and asked a very simple question. He asked if I was okay. I wasn't. I was not okay. I pretended I was. I said, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay. But I wasn't okay. But in that moment, I knew I was going to be. Because he cared about me enough to ask and make sure that I was okay. After that moment, I realized that he doesn't teach to entrap me in my words, to make me feel stupid. No. Instead, he teaches because he cares about me and wants to make sure that I am okay. Now, this past year, he gave me one of my favorite opportunities. He gave me the chance to be a mentor. He pulled me aside and asked me if I wanted to TA the beginning and intermediate Riverton classes. I wasn't too sure. I'm not very good at debate. Not at all. But he didn't care. He didn't care that I don't know very much about Lincoln Douglas or extemporaneous. He didn't care that I avoid student congress and presidential debate like the plague. The only thing he cared about was the fact that I would be able to love these students and see them the way that he does. Sure, they'd mess up, just like I did. That didn't matter. Because he believed in me. This past year, I got to help teach some of the most amazing people that I've ever met. And more, they got to teach me. Now, this speech isn't about me. It's not about my mentors. It's for my students. I have 2 things left that I want to say to them as I finish my last ever speech, my last ever oratory. In the darkness, there is light. All it takes is a smile, a song, or a kind word. I want them to know that I see leaders in them. All of them. No matter how small or quiet they are, I see the leader inside them. And that is worth fighting for. And last of all, I want them to know that it is okay to not be okay. That it's okay to not know what you're going to do with your life. Hey, in those hard moments, in the darkest moments, I want them to know that I am here for them, that I care about them so much, and that I will climb any mountain, swim any ocean, just to make sure that they know that I care about them. And now, my last bit of advice, my hope, the thing that I hope you all follow and do the best. Please, be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes. Thank you.
Dear Enough, I do not know you nor what you want. I have not seen you, you have not shown. I do not feel like I'm enough. I still need to grow. Yet they all say I'm where I am because you are me, even though I still don't feel I'm where I'm supposed to be. And so I shall remain confused because they all seem to think that you are me and I am you, yet I still always sink. I'm stuck in a loop of ups and downs with a mostly downward trend. And when I feel I have a need, I still can't find a friend. So if I am you, why do I feel this constant lack of self? If I were enough, I would not need others' endless help. Dear enough, you'll never know what it is to be someone is very not enough, whom I call me. The poem I just recited to you is one I wrote in one of the worst times of my entire life. It was March of 2024, and one of my best friends had just taken his own life. I was searching desperately for some sort of explanation. I was deeply pondering what it even meant to be enough. And I was struggling with the realization that my friend did not feel like he was or could ever be enough. The kind of pain he was going through, despite being all too common, can cause people to feel completely and totally alone. No matter the value others insist we have, we sometimes just can't see it. I've heard the seemingly encouraging words, "You are enough," nearly every day of my life, and yet it still hasn't stuck. I still feel as though my best effort will always fall short of my goal. No matter how hard I try, the finish line is always just out of reach. But is being enough really the goal we should be striving for? In 2019, The Independent reported a study of 2,000 millennials that showed 8 out of every 10 millennials believe they are not good enough. Out of these, 79% said that this affected their mental health, while 80% said it affected their sleep. That is a huge amount of people that feel inadequate, and a large portion of them are deeply affected by it. As I studied out the amorphous concept of the word enough, I've discovered some very concerning beliefs common among people. On the one hand is the belief that you are enough only after you've succeeded at all of your goals, while on the other hand is the belief that you are enough simply for existing. And yet, I believe both miss the mark entirely. So, all this begs the question, is there such a thing as enough? And if there is, what is it, and how do we find it? I fear that many of you will not appreciate the words I'm about to say. Now, this isn't because you don't actually agree with them, but instead because you are so frequently told the exact opposite. You see, the simple fact of the matter is, you are not enough, and you never will be, according to the common understanding of the word. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines the word enough as in or to a degree or quantity that satisfies or is necessary for satisfaction. Would any of you say you're happy with the progress you've made in your life? Content to give up now with no regrets or anything you wished you worked harder on? No, none of us are the greatest we ever will be. The term, "you learn something new every day," is true to a fundamental level. Every single day we have experiences unique to that day that will never happen in that way or at that time or with those people ever again. We are literally more today than we have ever been, and that will never stop. Since my friend died, I have gone through the worst feelings of depression and worthlessness I have ever experienced. I fell way behind on schoolwork, stopped putting in time and effort into my friend and family relationships, and I didn't prioritize myself. As I struggled to be good enough for myself, or as I struggled to be good enough for everyone around me, I began to feel less and less enough for myself. Eventually, I gave up on being good enough for everyone else when I realized I wasn't even enough for myself. This vicious cycle resulted in me falling all the way to rock bottom and forgetting my value and where it came from. And where is that exactly? I'll get to that in a second. Something I've noticed is it's extremely common for discouragement to set in when we don't do as well as expected. When we get home from a tournament having given our all with no trophy to show for it. When we work so hard on something and it fails. It's easy for us to go home and to beat ourselves up, to say, "I'm not good enough, I never will be." Discouragement can come as one finishing blow, or it can build up over years of feeling inadequate. Think about the last time you accomplished something that took a long time. Whether it be saving up for a trip that lasted a week, getting home from a performance you've practiced all year, or maybe finishing a speech that meant a lot to you. Oftentimes, we get an immediate sense of satisfaction from finishing something big, but frequently this fades, and we're left feeling hollow and empty. That big thing that took up so much of our time is gone, and now what? Do we feel like it was enough and we're good to quit? No. More often, we seek some other way to fill our time, and frankly, to feel like we're enough. Imagine your friend had a baby recently, and the baby's just starting to try walking. He falls down over and over, and yet no one would ever tell that baby to give up or tell him he's not enough. Isn't the fact that he's trying enough, whether or not he succeeds? The fact that he's even trying is cause for celebration from friends and family. Yet should his push for growth end there? Should he decide that walking is the only form of transportation he'll ever need? No. The natural next steps are for him to run, jump, climb, sing, and the list goes on. He will always be more than he was, as long as he is still trying. So why should you be any different? Why wouldn't you hold yourself to the same expectations you would hold a baby? Why wouldn't you show yourself the same love and care and support you would show your friend's child? As we get older, it seems we lose sight of our personal growth and focus more on the growth of those around us and how our own doesn't quite compare. A recent YouGov survey asked U.S. citizens whether they might be people pleasers, and about half, 49%, answered that yes, they would self-identify as people pleasers. There's a major link between being a people pleaser and feeling as though you don't have value. You see, when I was focused on everyone else's opinions of me, I believed that their thoughts determined my value, and due to my inability to read minds, I frequently assumed the worst. Think about the most important things in your life, whether they be your belongings, experiences, relationships, or something else. They all have something in common: the time and effort you put into them. Anything that you stop putting time and effort into becomes less and less valuable, while conversely, the more time and effort you put into something, the more it will mean to you. As I was sharing these ideas with my sister, she shared with me this powerful mindset. Every morning when she wakes up, she looks in the mirror and she asks herself, how am I going to take care of my person today? This helped me to realize that I am the only person I will ever have full control over and full responsibility for. And that is true for all of you. No amount of work or time or effort anyone else puts in could ever convince you that you're enough if you are not willing to believe it. So, is there such a thing as enough? Since this all started for me, I've come to believe that yes, there is. And it's actually quite simple. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not easy, but simple still. Being enough boils down to simply trying. Doing your best every day to be just a little bit better than you were the day before. As long as you are trying every day, that is enough to me. So before I go, I'd just like to share one more poem I wrote with you. This one is from more recently, when I rediscovered my value. It's written to be a response to the poem I opened with, a letter from Enough to you. My friend, I don't know what you mean. Of course you are not me. I hope that you can understand you were never meant to be. For if you were, then you would lose every bit of strength that God the Father sent you here to learn and to obtain. You'd miss the very point, if you were enough, of this earthly life. You'd never become tough. So stop the pointless thoughts of, I am not enough. That never was the goal. Just keep on trying stuff. And if at first you don't succeed, you'll still always grow. And that will be the reason still, even when you're low. Keep on going, friend, and I'm sure you'll see that being perfect is not real, and trying sets you free. Thank you.
She stands tall, bold with might, the delicate petals yellow and bright. Roots embracing the earth below, yet towards the sky she longs to grow. Always pointed up and tall with grace, she shifts to turn her face toward the sun, the light of all, tracing it across the sky till nightfall. Then waits all night to see the grace of the sun's bright golden face, then traces it across the sky until she has to say goodbye. Could we be like this flower true, no matter the darkness that passes through, to lift our face, embrace the light, and always look for the good in life? Thank you.
It was one of those days. You know the kind where everything goes wrong from the moment you wake up. My alarm didn't go off, so I was already running late. Then I spilled cold water all over my outfit right before going into 20-degree weather. When I got to school, I realized I forgot my textbook and this huge assignment. By lunch, I'd basically convinced myself I was the most incompetent person on the planet. When I got home, I felt defeated. My shoulders slumped, my energy completely drained. My dad took one look at me, didn't say a word, and instead wrapped me in this massive, genuine bear hug. This is where the magic started. All that tension I'd been carrying, it just melted. Suddenly I could breathe again. At that moment, I stopped feeling alone. This has happened to all of us. A loved one embraces us or holds our hand or puts their arm around us, and then we feel better. Even if all of our problems are still there, it makes them slightly more bearable. Physical touch is magical. I mean, someone putting their arms around me changed what had been an awful day into a much better one. So, why is physical touch so powerful? Everybody wants to be loved. Deep within us, there is a crave, a yearning to belong, to be noticed. Maslow's hierarchy of needs places belonging and connection above even physical security, shelter, food, water, and even health. According to the U.S. Health and Human Services, chronic loneliness is as detrimental as 15 cigarettes a day. I know I want to be loved. I know I've done things to win the affection of my family or my peers. I know it makes my day when someone gives me a hug. But not everyone cares for physical touch, right? I mean, some people think about it as just something that happens. You just shake someone's hand when you greet them. You just give someone a high five when they do something praiseworthy. You just give someone a hug when you're saying goodbye. You just go through the motions. It's just how it is. It's never genuine. And on the other hand, some people avoid physical touch altogether. It's not their love language. It's gross and PDA. It'd be awful to be caught hugging someone. I get it. I've had awkward hugs. I've had awkward handshakes. But our loved ones need our touch. Everybody needs physical touch. Now, I'm not saying we should invade people's personal space or let them invade ours, and getting past that awkward barrier is hard, but pushing through it is worth it. A study conducted by Eisenberger found that when we go long enough without experiencing physical touch, our brains light up in the exact same areas as when we are experiencing excruciating physical pain. Lack of connection hurts us. Think about it. During COVID-19, when we were isolated, when we couldn't be within 6 feet of people, when assemblies were kept at a minimum, that is when suicide rates, when depression rates skyrocketed. According to the Lancet Region Health of America, depression rates more than tripled in just the first few months of the pandemic. And suicide rates climbed to 51% by early 2021. I personally know someone who was deeply affected by lack of connection. She was a high schooler during the pandemic, cut off from hugs, from laughter in crowded hallways, even from simple pats on the back. She lost her friends, gained a few hundred pounds, and lost her self-esteem. Even now, she's made connections and is healing, but she will never be the same. I watched her go from vibrant to silent, from hopeful to numb. That's the kind of scar loneliness leaves, one that doesn't always fade. Lack of connection didn't just hurt her, it changed her. Humans need connection. Humans need to be loved, and touch communicates love in a way no word ever can. As Anne Hood once put it, I've learned there is more power in a good, strong hug than in 1,000 meaningful words. We are all, in some ways, like a houseplant sitting on a windowsill. No matter how deep our roots are, no matter how carefully we were potted, no matter how vibrant our leaves once were, we wilt without sunlight. And for humans, that sunlight is love. It's connection. Without it, even the most vibrant among us begin to wither. We stretch towards any warmth we can find, a kind glance, a hand held, a voice that says you matter, someone to notice. And when we go without it, we shrink. Quietly, slowly, sometimes invisibly. But what is this sunshine? Where can we find it? It's like a competition trying to get the sunniest spot on the lawn. A study of incarcerated individuals found that 56% said their crimes were motivated by a desire to be noticed and acknowledged as a human being. 56%. In the Journal of Adolescent Health, it found that self-harm is often fueled as a cry of attention. Not because they want to die, because they want someone, anyone, to notice their pain. Basically, these people are competing for the sunniest spot in the grass. But the sunshine isn't just for a select few. It's not conditional. It's not something that will run out. It's not just for the people who place first in that tournament or who have spotless rooms and perfect grades. The truth is, we are that sunlight, that life-saving sunlight. We are the ones capable of producing this life-changing sunshine, this connection, this love. And we aren't limited. We can create however much we want and give it to whoever we want. Humans quite literally make this sunshine. And humans need this sunshine. Humans need connection. But why do we so often disregard it? Why do we sit wilting, waiting for someone to give us a ray, when we could be the ones spreading it? Spreading it is just as beneficial as receiving it. So why do we wait to spread it? The truth is, humans don't realize how touch-starved they are until they experience meaningful physical connection. Not only does touch validate or satisfy an inherent human need to belong and to be noticed, but it quite literally changes us. What happens when we go without the sunlight? The touch deprivation study conducted by Tiffany Field found that those who reported minimal physical affection suffered 30% more physical ailments than the average person. It's crazy to think, but could touch really affect your physical health? In the 1970s, a fascinating experiment occurred. This experiment examined the effects of diet on heart health. Scientists took a control group of rabbits and fed them a high-fat diet and monitored their blood pressure, heart rate, and cholesterol. As expected, many of these rabbits had a buildup of fatty deposits on the insides of their arteries. Yet this was not all. The scientists discovered something that made little sense. One group of rabbits had as much as 60% less fatty deposits than the others. What could this mean? The rabbits were all the same breed from New Zealand, from a virtually identical gene pool. They were fed the exact same amounts of the exact same food. To scientists, results like this can cause lost sleep. What could this mean? Did the results invalidate the study? Was there a flaw in the experiment design? Eventually, the scientists turned their attention to the research staff. Was there something the staff could have done to influence the results? As they pursued this, they discovered that every rabbit with fewer fatty deposits was under the care of one researcher. She fed them the same thing as everyone else, but as one scientist reported, she was an unusually kind and caring individual. When she fed the rabbits, she talked to them, held them, and petted them. She couldn't help it. It was just how she was. The scientist did more than feed the rabbits. She gave them love. At first glance, it seemed unlikely that this could be the cause for such a dramatic difference. So they repeated the experiment, this time tightly controlling all other aspects. When they analyzed the results, the same thing happened. All the rabbits under the care of the loving researcher had significantly higher health outcomes. Years later, the findings of this experiment were still influential in the medical community. Dr. Kelly Harding published a book titled The Rabbit Effect. She concluded, take a rabbit with an unhealthy lifestyle. Talk to it, hold it, give it affection. Ultimately, she concludes, the relationship made a difference. Ultimately, what comes down to the most important parts of our health has as much to do with how we think about what it means to be human, how we live, and how we treat one another. Physical touch is much more important than it seems. This was proven hundreds of years ago. In the 13th century, Frederick II, a German king, conducted an atrocious experiment on babies. His goal was to figure out what language they would grow up to speak naturally if never spoken to. So he took babies from their mothers at birth and placed them in the care of nurses. They were given everything you would think is essential to survival. The only two things they were deprived of was being spoken to and being touched. King Frederick commanded these nurses never to touch the babies. His experiment was cut short. Unfortunately, these babies grew up to speak no language at all because they died. These babies literally died for want of touch. Not only does physical touch satisfy a deep craving in our hearts and our souls to belong, but it's also proven to regulate our emotions, improve our cardiovascular health, and strengthen our immune system. When we hug, oxytocin is released, which not only promotes feelings of love and bonding, but also lowers cortisol levels, our stress levels. When we hug, the physical act of hugging activates pressure receptors under our skin, sending signals to the vagus nerve in the brain that we are loved and protected, which in turn slow our heart rate and blood pressure, inducing a relaxed state. Essentially, touch is a natural and effective way to modulate our entire emotional states. When we hug, our body sends signals to the parasympathetic nervous system in our brain, which in turn slow our blood pressure and make our blood flow better. A study conducted by the University of North Carolina found that couples who held hands and hugged it was directly linked to a reduced risk of hypertension and heart disease. And a study by Light et al. Proves that when we hug, it lowers our vasodilation, which is dilation of blood vessels, which improves our blood flow, making our immune system stronger and our ability to fight off illness better. As Amy Napa counseled, I'm not suggesting that we can heal physical conditions with our bare human fingers, but I do believe there is a healing of the spirit that takes place when we touch others. There's a comfort that can't be found anywhere else but in a touch or a hug. So let's look at the pros of touch. Touch makes us feel loved, an inherent need. Touch is a good coping mechanism for depression, anxiety, all the feelings we get that we don't want to feel. Touch regulates our emotions and helps us interact with people more calmly. Touch improves our cardiovascular health, resulting in an elongated lifespan. And touch helps our immune system and ability to fight off illness. Let's look at the cons of touch. We might feel awkward. But ladies and gentlemen, I am here today to tell you that pushing past that awkwardness is worth it. It not only helps us, but whoever it is we are reaching out to. What if your loved one is barely hanging on, hiding behind a smile, hoping someone will notice? What if they don't have the words? What if they can't ask for help? But what if it was your hug that made them feel noticed? What if it was your hug that helped them belong? What if it was you that gave them this life-saving sunlight? What if it was you that played the role my dad played when I got home from school? We don't always get second chances. We don't always get to go back and say, I should have held them when I had the chance. I should have hugged them. But we do get this moment. We get now. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if we truly mean it, if we truly love someone, we won't let awkwardness or uncertainty get in the way of showing our love. One time, I saw this video. A woman was at the mall. She had this sign that said, "Free hugs." As you'd expect, most people passed her. They thought it was awkward. But I 100% guarantee you I am absolutely positive that whoever stopped and gave that woman a hug had an amazing rest of their day. Touch is important. In fact, it's crucial to a successful and fulfilled life. Next time you're having a hard day or week or month, reach out to a loved one and ask for a hug. I know my dad will always be there for me when I get home from school, and I know touch benefits my emotions, my cardiovascular health, and my immune system. As Amy Napa once put it, I found there is more power in a good, strong hug than in 1,000 powerful words. Thank you.
In my dad's strong arms, my toes left the floor and my heart soared. At the daddy-daughter dance, my 10-year-old self had never felt this close to my dad. His out-of-town work made moments like this rare. As we danced, we were able to connect. The world around us seemed to disappear. It was just the two of us. I laughed and he laughed. I smiled and he smiled. I saw him and he saw me. We saw each other, my dad and his daughter. That night, the dancing wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that we did it together. Thank you.
At the center of old Quebec City, Canada, is an old military citadel built for a war that never came. The citadel is beautiful in its own way, but it will be forever dwarfed by the massive Chateau Frontenac, the castle hotel that stands next door, named the most photographed hotel in the world. The citadel, on the other hand, is just a maze of old gray stone that most tourists ignore. It's a box in the attic, a forgotten remnant of the past, now covered in dust. Within those citadel walls are old barracks, a small visitor center, and one humble chapel, even less majestic to look at than the citadel itself. The chapel's small and unimpressive, with a faded green roof and walls and plain gray walls. Yet inside that chapel is something that feels, to me, almost sacred. Every morning at the same time, an assigned soldier enters that chapel and turns the page of an old book kept inside. The book contains a list of names which the assigned soldier reads aloud. Those names are every one of the regiment's men and women fallen in the line of duty. And every day after the names are read, the assigned soldier says the French phrase, "Je me souviens," I remember. That humble chapel was far from the first place I heard those words. In fact, humans have been saying them for centuries. The world is full of museums, historical sites, and old records, all built for that specific purpose, so that we can look back and say, "Je me souviens." Quebec is a great example of that. That French phrase is the theme of Quebec, and it speaks of remembering their French heritage. While living in Canada, I heard that phrase everywhere. I want you to imagine for a second that you're standing in your burning home, and all living things have already escaped the fire, but before the flames consume all your possessions, you have time to save one physical thing. My question for you is, what do you save? According to a survey by the AA Insurance Consumer Index with over 18,000 responses, the most popular choice is photos, with 33% of people choosing to save those over all else. Also on the list are heirlooms and letters and journals. This survey showed us something interesting, because though it's asking about physical possessions, Most people's choice isn't physical at all. I mean, of course, a photo is a physical object, but you don't save photos for the image pictured. You don't save journals because they look pretty, and you don't save heirlooms because you could sell them. You save those objects because they feel, to you, almost sacred. The stories they tell and the past they unlock that allows you to look at that photo or heirloom and say, I remember. Humans value memories as evidenced by the fact that we all collectively value them. My question is, why do we remember? It's sometimes hard to pin down exactly what makes something valuable. The only way to prove something valuable is for it to be a means to something that we agree to be valuable without proof. John Stuart Mill, author of utilitarianism, said that something can only be proven to be valuable if it's a means to obtain happiness or freedom from pain. Those are the only thing truly valuable as ends. So why do we remember? According to Mill, it's because it makes us happy. Maybe that's because it teaches us lessons that helps us avoid mistakes that would bring pain, or because great stories bring joy. But whatever the case, the memories have no intrinsic value as ends, only as a means to obtain happiness. I understand his argument intellectually. It's neat and logical. Maybe it can explain why so many people, if trapped in their burning home, would save photos or journals or letters or heirlooms. Maybe those are the things that would make them the most happy. I just have one question. In an old chapel in old Quebec City, Canada, is a book of names. All the regiment's men and women fallen in the line of duty. Every day an assigned soldier reads those names aloud without knowing the stories of those soldiers, aside from how those stories ended, with a death that broke hearts and ruined families. Tell me, where is the value in that? Maybe it's silly to recite the names of soldiers long dead, and maybe those that recite the names are fools for saying those 3 useless words. What good is it to remember someone who doesn't exist anymore if all it brings is sadness? Perhaps you believe, as I do, in a life after death. But even if those people are still around somewhere, why would they care now if someone they've never met recites their name dozens of years later? I see the social utility in remembering the important stories, those with a great effect on society, those we can learn from and those we should emulate. But that list of names, they're just ordinary people whose stories had sad endings, soldiers lost in battles now meaningless. I think John Stuart Mill's argument is correct. We remember the happy stories because they make us happy, and the important stories because they're important. But we don't just remember happy stories. If value is just intellectual study or happiness, then why bother to preserve an unimportant list of names? Maybe because it doesn't feel unimportant, at least not to me. But then maybe there are those who would disagree. At the center of old Quebec City, Canada, is a cathedral called Saint-Jean-Baptiste. The cathedral is grand and impressive, with an intricate steel spire and majestic stone architecture. In the middle of a city neighborhood full of 2-story apartments, it towers over the surrounding buildings, at least twice their height. The store is full of shops and restaurants, but while visiting, I found it impossible to pay them any heed with the massive cathedral looming behind them. And inside that cathedral is nothing. 70 years ago, Quebec was one of the most religious societies in North America. In 1957, 88% of Quebec Catholics reported attending weekly religious services. There are chapels and cathedrals everywhere in Quebec. Even now, I remember looking out over the city and seeing dozens of spires rising from the cityscape. But starting in 1960 began what is now referred to as the Quiet Revolution. Not a revolution of arms or force, but a revolution of ideas. The Catholic Church in Quebec was often suppressive, and it largely controlled education and forced negative social pressures. There were legitimately ugly scandals, and the church sometimes abused its power in terrible ways. So, with the Quiet Revolution, Quebec as a whole turned its back on religion. By 1980, the 88% of Catholics attending weekly religious services had dropped to 38% from the same population. By 2018, it's dropped to around 7%. And so, all through Quebec, chapels and cathedrals shut their doors, and Saint Jean Baptiste stands empty and forgotten, a box in the attic, hidden where it will never have to be looked at. Its doors are bolted closed, chapels abandoned, while every day hundreds of Quebecois walk past. They avert their eyes from the towering cathedral and look toward the chateau instead. And then they say those three words, the motto of Quebec, Je me souviens, I remember. It's true that we preserve even sad stories. We preserve them in the form of old cathedrals and abandoned chapels. But when looking out over the Quebec cityscape, you still see the spires rising over the neighborhoods, preserved because they're historical sites, or because the ones who own them would rather leave them forever empty than sell them. They're too valuable to destroy, but not valuable enough to be remembered. And I can't help but think that those Quebecois sound like fools for saying those three useless words. The truth is, there are some memories so ugly that it's easier to hide them away, like a box in the attic that we'll never use or look at, but still can't bear to throw away. When I asked at the beginning of the speech what you'd save from your burning home, how many of you thought of something that you haven't looked at recently? A photo album that sits gathering dust, just remnants of another life. Or a journal that you don't read, left over from younger years. I know what I would save, and it's exactly that. In my bedroom, hidden at the back of the closet, is an old board game box. It's got a worn cardboard lid covered with comic book style art, but inside, and it's small and unimpressive, but inside that box is something that feels, to me, almost sacred. Inside are dozens of pieces of paper and other small objects, each connected to a memory. There's a box of toothpicks that I bought on the first date I ever went on. There's a gelato spoon. There's a reflection that I wrote at the beginning of last year, and the program for my friend's funeral. Not all the memories are happy memories. Some are sad and scary, but even the happy memories sometimes make me cry because of how much I've changed and how much I've had to go through since those endless summer nights before I had to grow up. Why do we remember? Because some memories are beautiful. Of course, those memories have value, but what about the others? Sometimes I find myself asking instead, why should we remember? The Quebecois seem happy enough to forget. So what proof is there that it's any better to remember? To open the book of names and read from it daily, instead of just leaving the past dead or hidden in a box, in a cathedral, or deep inside of you. The truth is, it wasn't just memories I hid in that box. I also hid a piece of myself in that box. Harder than remembering the friends I've lost, harder than remembering the happy times that I can't go back to, harder even than remembering my darkest nights is remembering the boy I used to be. He's small and unimpressive compared to the world, and he always looks a little worn at the edges, though he tries his best. But I've hurt people, and I've made mistakes in ways that I can't fix. And it would be so much easier to hide all that ugliness away in a box where I never have to look at it, and more importantly, where the world never has to look at it. What evidence is there that it's better to open the book of names, read from it daily, as opposed to just letting the past die? Well, as for proof, I can give you none. But what evidence is it possible to give that one happiness is better than another, aside from the testimony of those who've experienced both? And if my testimony isn't enough, then perhaps you'd believe the testimony of Corrie ten Boom, a World War II concentration camp survivor. When she told her story, she said, "Memories are keys, not just to the past, but to the future." If she, of all people, after everything she'd been through, still thought it was better to remember, then I can choose to remember too. I think it was well put by German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder, who said, speaking of the atrocities committed at Auschwitz and other concentration camps, "The past cannot be overcome. It is the past. But its traces, and above all the lessons to be learned from it, extend to the present." In other words, the past is part of the reality we live in, whether we like it or not. Even the memories you hide are pieces of you. Sometimes it's harder to live in this reality, where the uncomfortable things don't stay hidden. But even if you choose an edited reality where you hide every piece of yourself that you don't like, even then, you still won't overcome the past. And so, I humbly suggest that you open the box in the attic. It's not enough to keep the box. You have to let it be seen. Maybe it's a physical box like mine, or maybe it's events in your past that you've never talked to anyone about. Maybe it's a person that you refuse to remember. But whatever it is, I bet if given the opportunity to lose those memories completely, very few people would choose that. Certainly Corrie ten Boom wouldn't, and neither would I. I remember Malachi Nielson, not because it's easy, not because I have some great effect on the world, but because inside one unimpressive boy is something that I believe is almost sacred. Join me, and we can both say with sincerity, "Je me souviens." Thank you.